I think it's important that people understand what's actually happening out on farms. We had the dairy that became an ice cream company. It's still a dairy, but all of those things are really about the same thing, that the guy that's starting a hardware store or starting a computer company or starting a bank or starting a whatever business you see in town, what it's all got in common is somebody's getting up every morning, putting their feet on the floor and going toward it. They're going after a dream or an opportunity, and they have the ambition to do that, and then they're figuring out what it takes to do it.
This is Ragan and Massey's Farms of America podcast. This season, we invite each family featured on Farms of America docuseries to talk about farming, their experience on the show, and what's new on the farm. Today, we have a special guest, Mike Massey, owner of Ragan and Massey, and the man behind Ragan and Massey's Farms of America.
I just felt like we ought to tell those stories, so I thought about it, how do we do that? And I remembered as a kid this Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, we'll do Ragan and Massey Farms of America.
Okay. Ragan and Massey's Farms of America podcast, brought to you by Ragan and Massey.
Mike Massey is here today with us. We're in one of our old sheds here at Kroul Farms. It's exactly to this day 2 years ago. Your crew is here filming the first part of Farms of America docuseries. So, yeah, crazy. I mean, how fast time goes. But 2 years later, and sitting down with Mike Massey, was nice enough to get up here to Iowa from Louisiana.
It's great. It's great to be here. I love touring the farm and seeing everything and being in the shed. And,
it's something.
We like
the
our
shed,
relationship.
But
we like the stories that we like the story of your family, and I thought everybody would be interested in that. And so I was glad that y'all were our premier edition, our very first one. And so, very well received, and it was great. It's a great story. It's a great show.
No, and we'll say that on camera. Thank you. I mean, that was, you guys did a great job. You and your crew did a great job just telling the story in a natural way. And every one of the episodes, as we'll get into here later on, was done well and put agriculture on a platform that we'd like. It's all positive, and trying to teach the public too, what each one of those facets, how it plays into the system.
But that was sort of what our goal was. I grew up, never had to farm for a living. I had a few cows and stuff like that, but my family farmed before me. And then when I went to college with a lot of farmers at Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College in Tifton,
I read
Georgia.
your bio. I was going to ask you about
that. And I went to Georgia, and my best friends or a lot of my best friends are farmers, and I was always around them, and I got my degree in agriculture and stuff, and so I saw what was going on the farm, and our customers, some are farmers, but there are also a lot of people that want to be farmers. They want to do what y'all do. They want to do what each one of these stories is about, and I saw that, and I said, our customers would be interested in this, but then also, I think it's important that people understand what's actually happening out on farms. And at the same time I was doing this, we were looking at the possibility of the estate tax exemption going way down. I said, that's going to wreck all these family farms, and we need to be telling these things and people understanding it. And so I said, I don't know how we're going to ever monetize this or how it would ever make Ragan and Massey a profit. I said, I want to tell the stories of real farmers, real family farmers that are succeeding in farms, because there's not a whole lot of that. There's not, I read a statistic one time, in 1900, there was one farmer for every 29 people in America, and now there's like one for every 5,000 or something like that. And the cost of food is, a person works less today to feed themselves than they worked in 1900 too. Mm-hmm. So what's happened in agriculture in the 20th century and the early 21st century is the biggest technology story. It's bigger than going to the moon. It's bigger than splitting the atom. When we went from average 20 bushel corn to 200 and something bushel corn in 100 years. That's been huge for the world. And I just felt like we ought to tell those stories. So I thought about it, how do we do that? And I remembered as a kid this Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, we'll do Ragan and Massey Farms of America. Okay. And then Joey and Elliot helped us put together some good farm stories. And I think we have some outstanding stories, and we're proud to tell those stories. I mean, the farmers are the stars, and they're the ones that, those are real stories. And another thing, I wanted farmers to know that, because farmers always think about this as unique, and they do have unique problems, but small businesses have these same issues, and they have these same generational issues, these same generational challenges, and these same get up in entrepreneurial, how do I change my business? How do I do things? And so the best place to see that's on the farm. People are having to change. They're having to sell pumpkins and sell firewood and things like that to make their business a generational business and keep going.
That's what spurred our change, right? Was the farm crisis of the 80s and early 90s when my parents started going into pumpkins, tomatoes, sweet corn. So it's like that. Anything. I mean, you've been around business a lot longer than I have, but I mean, you've seen it. But go into that a little bit. You started Ragan and Massey in 1991.
We were primarily a distribution company. We distributed seed and home and garden chemicals and things like that to feed stores in Louisiana, Mississippi, and southern Alabama and Panhandle of Florida, and ran trucks. And somewhere along the line, we decided, it was time. We were settling enough annual ryegrasses into the forage, into the Louisiana and Mississippi cattle marketplaces, that we decided that we should get a variety of our own. We should own the variety ourselves instead of buying from another marketer. And so we started out with Prime tetraploid annual ryegrass. We own it with a company in Texas. And we were successful in getting that started. So we saw we had a little bit of expertise in starting brands. And then we had an opportunity to get into the herbicide business. And we did that. And we started our own brands, RM43 being our largest brand. And we got out of the distribution business and invested all of our money in manufacturing. And so now we're a basic manufacturer of herbicides. We still have some forage seeds. We have some oat varieties and some ryegrass varieties that we still own, and we sell in the fall of the year for the fall grazing in the South. And then that's sort of a legacy business for us. But where we're growing is in the herbicide business, and now we're investing into the veterinary pharmaceutical business, and we hope to be in that business in the next year or so. So that's what we do.
Yeah.
At Ragan and Massey.
I'm curious, in all of season 1, there was quite a wide range of farms featured. And I'm just curious if there was anything you learned by watching all the episodes about your customers that maybe you didn't know. I mean, the crew went really deep into some of these stories and their challenges and their struggles and their products and everything. So I'm curious, as you watch them,
what know about all these different farms? It's like everything's new, right? I mean, every story's different. Every process is something different. We could go here in Iowa to 50 different bean farmers and do 50 shows, and we would learn something at each one of them. I mean, they all have something going on there that's unique and stuff that's allowed them to continue and be successful when these land investments and equipment investments and seed investments have gone through the roof. But they've all have stories to tell, and I like hearing those stories, and I like telling those stories for people to see. And it's here people are concerned about beans and corn, but when you go to the Northeast, it's cranberries in Massachusetts, it's dairies, it's in the Pacific Northwest we did the mussels and oysters, mm-hmm. and in Louisiana it's rice and crawfish, and out west it's big cattle, and all those stories are unique, and they all have challenges that are unique to their business and unique to their industry. And I think people find that interesting. We've wrapped our first season. We've been on 2 networks, Cowboy Channel and the RFD channel, and we're now almost completely on the YouTube channel with all the episodes. And we see the viewership, and the viewership's been good, and the people, and our feedback that we get's been very good. So we're filming season 2, and we got 13 more stories coming in season 2. So we're going to, Tom and I, Tom Ragan is my partner. We're committed to continue to tell these stories, and I think they're good stories.
Yeah.
So
I think depending on who you are in the audience too, you have something different to take away. I mean, if you are a farmer or you're working in the agricultural industry in any of these, verticals or places, you can maybe get an idea or a thought or challenge your own assumptions on something by looking at a business different from yours, different part of farming, but something to help you, think about something differently. Or if you're a consumer, it's the education part of it, because there's so much happening that there's so many assumptions and so many people that, think they know, but they don't. And I remember, one of the big takeaways I had from the show was watching the episode with the grass finished beef. And I didn't realize you could get that kind of fat and marbling at the end. We're big into the grain finished beef and all that. And, there's farms that are figuring out different ways to do things. And it's just that may or may not work for everyone, may or may not ever work for us. And what we do may or may not work for them. But you can really get ideas and challenge yourself and think outside the box.
There's a lot of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial attitudes on farms all across America. So that we see that a lot, and I think our show proves that. And just like you talked about the grass-fed beefs, and we talk about making whiskey out of rice, and we make, peach farms that sell mail order and things like that. There's a lot of entrepreneurial chances being taken, and a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities that people are grabbing, and that's good to people to see that, I think. And so,
well, I think that's the key to having agriculture survive in the United States too. I mean, it's this next generation that's coming on, hopefully comes back to the farm, is how do you make room for yourself? I know Nicole and I, tried to do the same thing here with some of the different businesses that we jumped into as far as wholesale markets or the CSA, the community support agriculture, or, more wholesaling pumpkins, more firewood. It's interesting, a couple of those episodes, you saw that next generation come back, and I think it was the distiller in Wisconsin, right?
Right.
Like, pretty big row crop father, and the son kind of went off, did his own thing for a little bit, but to come back, had an idea, put his heart and soul into it, and now it looks to be a successful part of what they do. So that's what I found interesting, and I watched every one of them, and every one of them had a different idea and a different way of doing things. And even that cattle guy in New Mexico, hey, I go to the sale barn every week. This is my rule. This is how much money I'm spending. I know what my gain is on this, and I make it work. And that was interesting to me, because we sometimes get locked in our own way of doing things and thinking. And that guy is dealing strictly in dollars, and he's a business guy, and that's what makes sense, because we're all wrapped up in the money game with agriculture too.
That's right. And in this, we had the dairy that became an ice cream company. It's still a dairy, but that all of those things are really about the same thing that the guy that's starting a hardware store, or starting a computer company, or starting a bank, or starting a whatever business you see in town. What it's all got in common is somebody's getting up every morning, putting their feet on the floor and going toward it. They're going after a dream or an opportunity, and they have the ambition to do that. And then they're figuring out what it takes to do it. And when something don't work, they stop it and do something else. They go in a different direction. When you can't grow this crop for a profit, let's plant this field in something else. Yep. And so that's all over America on farms, and it's a great story. It's the story of America, really, as far as the story of the opportunities that are out there. And
that makes me wonder, one of the great things about the show too is just how transparent it was. Not everything is, roses and rainbows every day. The chicken farmer in Nebraska, talked about how difficult that business was to get started, and,
absolutely
failure in parts of it, and get it knocked down a little bit, and having to reinvent yourself. And, how have you done that in your career? I mean, I'm sure not everything has always worked out perfectly. I know you're working on a project now that's really challenging. And how do you keep yourself going? Because every day almost it feels like, in farming, something's setting you back. And if you get stuck in that too long, you don't keep going.
Right. Well, the first 25 years of our business, we stayed closer to bankruptcy than profit, right? And so it was the same deal. Get up every morning, go after the opportunities, look for opportunities, pursue them, chase them. And that's just how it goes. I mean, that's what you do. And persistence and ambition and will pay off. And then, but you see that in Farms of America, and you will now have 26 stories that's in every one of them. Here's some family that every day they're doing something entrepreneurial, and they're taking opportunities and taking risk and rising to challenges and building their business and building the country.
And even that's inspiring, right?
That's right. That's what it is. It is what it is. I get frustrated sometimes when these young people tell me, "Oh, I'm going to get this job with XYZ Corporation and it's going to be great," and I just can't take the risk of being in business for myself. Well, aren't we glad that there is a portion of the population that don't have that attitude, that they want the risk, they want the ambition? Because to me, having been in both places, having worked for the guy, for the man, if you want to call it that, and and then owning the business, I would never go back. It's more risky in my mind to work for the other guy,
to not control your own destiny,
than to be your own.
I've always kind of said that, right? There's right or wrong. There's leaders and there's followers, right? And we need both. We need both, and nothing's wrong with either of them. But you got to have the people that are willing to take risk or grind the extra couple hours a day or do this, to make things happen, to make change and to adapt to things and to make the world go round. But I think at the same time, just hearing you talk a little bit, Mike, you got to treat your people too, your team, right? I mean, you've had, you're talking about one gal on your staff that still answers the phone for every customer. I don't know. She's worked for you for like 30 or 40 years, and then another salesman for 25. Like, you got to treat your people well. And I think, I think you do that. And just from my experience with you, it seems like you've got some people that have stuck with you, for the entire time. So,
well, you got to have a team that has the same vision that you have. And then you have a responsibility to that team to keep your business growing and to keep going. That's I'm 67 years old, and they say, "When are you going to retire?" I said, "Well, I don't plan to." I said, "This is
just do it different."
I have an obligation to make this a generational business, and I have obligations to 60 families down there, and I'm going to make sure that those obligations are met. And so that's what we do, and that's what we try to do every day, and that's what everybody does. That's a generational business.
So now you said your age. We didn't. So
that's right.
So now I'm curious. That is closer to the age where you might want to enjoy yourself with a little bit of. I won't say the R word, but
what would I rather do than to come to Iowa and meet with the Krouls?
Yeah. What would you rather do? Absolutely nothing.
This kind of things I like to do. Right.
But what does that generational business look like for you? I mean, we know Sarah. We got to know her a little bit.
Sarah's in the company, and we just see how it all shakes out with the next generation. But we're planning on. We're also building the company in such a manner that the next generation don't have to run it. So that's sort of what our thought process is. There's going to be management in place one way or the other for the company to go on. And that's what I tell my employees, and if they're watching this, I'm telling that now. This is, we're going to be assured the right people to run the company, whether they're family or not. And so that's on, in my mind, in my simple country mind, that's my obligation. So
it sounds so simple when you say it that way, but it's true. I mean, we've talked about, we've got, 4 kids, 3 girls and a boy.
It's not simple to do, it's simple to say.
It's simple to say. It seems like an obvious concept though, right? Like even in farming, you have to have your business plan or your estate plan or whatever set up. So that way, if you do have a kid in the next generation who wants to do it, great. And if not, then what's your plan? So that way it doesn't fall into the wrong hands or turn into something that, was not really what you wanted. And you can't control everything, but that's what farmers have to plan for too, is if I do have a kid that wants it, what does that look like? If I don't, what does that look like too? And there's a lot of families that are, just because of the way generational and population works, there are a lot of families trying to figure that out right now.
That's right.
And what advice would you have?
Oh, you just have to get up every morning and go forward and look at who can do the work. Look, give them give them the opportunity to fail, and then see how they react to a failure. That's what you want to see. You want, you want to see mistakes and recovery from mistakes in the way I see it. I mean, if they're looking after our business, they're not going to get fired, right? They're not going to make a mistake. If they're legitimately trying to look after our business and it turns out to be a mistake, that's not a problem. That's not a problem.
If their intent was there.
That's right. If they're looking after the business, trying to grow the business, protect the business, that's not a problem. So we look for people like that take that attitude on. Mm-hmm. And that's generally what we have too. Tom and I we haven't turned over many employees. I think 2024 we turned over one.
Doing something right.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that's what we try to do. The other thing that you got to do, and it's very important to us too, is you got to make sure you're taking care of your customers. And we got the consumer customers, and we have our retail partners that stock our product and get it on the shelf, and we have to listen. We have to listen to what's important to them and make sure that we can help them do what they need to do to give us the space and to give us the distribution so that our products are available to our consumers. And so we're very keen on that, and we're very in tune to what they have to say. And I think that's, for any business, that should be a priority too. And then you have a lot of supplier partners. You got your banks, you got your insurance companies and things like that. All of those people are people that you got to, that are stakeholders that you have obligations to. And so you got to just take care of your obligations, and everything will come.
Yeah.
That's simple.
That's the sound. Another thing. The consumer is
the basis of everything, right? I mean, we got to listen to our customer.
You got to give them something they want. Yes. And you got to sell them something that helps their need, meets their need. And so we're always thinking about what is a need that's not being fulfilled that we can do a good job with. And that's what we do.
So as we turn the page from season 1 into season 2, what are you looking forward to?
Well, we just 13 more great stories, and we've got some good ones in season 2. And that Joey can tell you more about stories we've already filmed at versus the ones we haven't filmed at. But we're all over the country again, and it's going to be good. And then we get great feedback from people that's tuned into the show. I don't know. When people watch one episode, when they watch Kroul Farms, right, they end up watching the whole season. They want to watch everything because they like the stories. And like I say, a whole lot of these people, they're sitting in a suburb somewhere, or they're sitting. A good friend of mine who lives in New York City watches the show, right? They want to be Matt and Nicole, right? And that's
I don't know about that.
They want this lifestyle, and they admire this lifestyle and things like that. And so we want them to understand fully what they're wanting.
It's a little escapism, though,
that's right? That's right. That's right. We want them to say, "All right, now you want to do this. All right, this is what."
Think again.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that's part of it, right? Just to kind of get a feel for what farmers and people in ag go through every day. But at the same time, it's in this society, we hear it all the time around here even. Oh, I remember going on my grandma's place or my grandpa's place. Like, I remember going to gather eggs, or I remember walking beans or doing some of that nature. And it's, us we open our farm up, every fall, every spring, to the consumer, for them just to see what's happening on the farm, right? And I think that's part of the reason I hope, you're doing the show too, is to just kind of reconnect this age with, what it was 50s, 60s when they were growing up on grandma and grandpa's farm, baling hay in the summer. And you just obviously we don't see it anymore, just due to what you said with, 5,000 farmers to one person, or one farmer to 5,000 people to feed them. It's that's what I like as the beauty of the episodes too, is just reconnecting that little nostalgic feeling that they had when they were kids.
Yeah, and grandma and grandpa, when they visited the farm, they didn't make them work too much. So we want to be sure that they understand about Matt going there at 3:00 in the morning, pulling that calf, and his mama stuck in the mud, and and things like
real
that.
Stories,
real stuff, and that tractor breaking down in the middle of a harvest. Or in one episode, we have a bean farmer in West Tennessee. His navigation system went down while he was trying to plant. Right, so those are new. Those are new high tech problems that grandma didn't have and grandpa didn't have, but those. Yeah. Those are things that we want people to understand. Right? So yes, this farm life is a good life, but here's what comes with it.
And this is how it's changed with technology over 50, 60-year period.
And even just the pressures of farming, and I don't know what the statistics are now, but over the years, some of the highest suicide rates in the country come from farmers, from that occupation.
It's still up there, yeah.
And that's there is a lot of truth in the weight that you carry as a farmer in terms of the financial obligations of the business and your family, and the decisions you have to make every day about, animals and, life and death things, even a lot of the time, and whether or not you're going to sell your crop at this price or wait for the market to do this. And you make a wrong move, and, it can be catastrophic, when things aren't going well. And so one of the things I loved about season 1, I'm looking forward to season 2, is, being aspirational about it again, and reminding yourselves that, there's always another tomorrow, and there's always another way to do it. And how are people doing it successfully and having fun with it still? I think, high stakes farming can sometimes feel like it's not a lot of fun.
That's right. So what do you guys see happening? What's new and improved at Kroul Farms? What's coming? What are we going to see next?
He's putting us on the spot.
Yeah, let's turn this around a little bit.
I think, there's just some updating needs to be done. One, first and foremost, just some infrastructure so we can kind of grow. And I think one of them is the meat business, start directing more of that beef directly to consumer, just like we do with a lot of our products, the pumpkins, the flowers, the produce. We've always had about 150 head of beef cows, and a lot of times we just take them to the sale barn and the price we get that day. But, just like our mindset is trying to control the volatility of markets in the commodity business, but now just control, kind of your adage too of,
it's not a great time to try and sell your beef direct, though, with markets so high.
True.
Because now it makes a lot more sense to just take them to the sale barn.
We were talking about that, but just allowed us an opportunity to get into some of these places and to get our beef processed and to get it packaged in our way. And
to learn, right? Because you have to do a few, we were selling, beef in our store this year for the first time, our own beef. And that's been a learning opportunity because, we hadn't done that before. Yeah. So figuring that out. And I would say, though, one of the hardest parts, everyone wants to talk about how, these niche farms are on such a great path because you are selling direct to consumer. You can control your prices more and things like that. There's a lot that goes in, a lot of fear that even goes into that too, because when you're setting the price for a product that your friends and neighbors, and you expect your community to buy or want them to buy, that's kind of scary too.
Right. Well, one of the things that I see across all businesses, particularly, individually owned businesses and private businesses and farms, is getting that price right. That doesn't mean the price is cheap. The price needs to cover what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It needs to be the value you're bringing. What is the value that you're bringing? And so entrepreneurs and farm entrepreneurs, when they have opportunities like that, the mindset needs to be, what is the value I'm bringing? What is this grass-fed beef that I'm doing? Mm-hmm. What is the value of that to my customers? What is the value of this delivery? However we going to deliver it, what is the value of these beautiful mums you have out here today? I mean, they're large, they're huge. You got a better product than the other guy. So are you getting what you deserve for that. So I would encourage people to think along those lines on pricing. So often, in all entrepreneurs, I just don't know if I can sell it for this or sell it for that.
Yeah.
Let your customers make that decision. You don't
test it first and see.
That's right. So you let the customers.
It was the gentleman close to New York, marketing his beef to the restaurants in New York, right?
Right.
I mean, he's trying to get the same price if he went west, he went east or wherever he was from and found that market, and it's worth $50, $60, a pound as opposed to
right. It's what they want. I mean, he's giving them, what they want.
Yeah.
He's giving them a local product. They
found a market that that his customer pays for.
Right. So you have to think. You have to think like that. What do my customers want, and what will they pay for? And that's the only thing you can do.
I like it.
All right.
What else do you have?
I got through my notes. Did you guys?
I got through my note.
Mike had a lot of notes.
Ragan and Massey's Farms of America podcast, brought to you by Ragan and Massey. Visit the Ragan and Massey YouTube channel to watch the show.